welcome to today's episode of the Dive Into Reiki podcast. And I'm really grateful that my guest today, Carla Stangenberg, actually said yes to this invitation. She's a Reiki master who lives in Brooklyn. Her interest in Reiki took a quantum leap when she visited a yoga student in the hospital with an inoperable brain tumor. She witnesses a Reiki master treating her bedridden student as she entered the hospital room. Carla immediately knew she would pursue Reiki to assist in life's most difficult situation. She has been practicing Reiki daily since first initiated in 2009, and in 2016, she received the first of two master trainings. As a yoga teacher, she began incorporating Reiki into restorative yoga practice at Jaya Yoga Center in Brooklyn, established in 2000, where she's the co-owner, teacher, and director of teacher training. She also holds a BFA in acting and directing. Carla, thank you so much for saying yes to this invitation.
Thank you for inviting me. It's wonderful to be invited to participate in your wonderful podcast. I appreciate the invitation. Thank you, Nathalie.
Thank you, especially because a lot of guests I research and you just fell on my lap through an introduction. So I'm very grateful because I always want to do a podcast. A lot of Reiki practitioners are actually yoga teachers. And I always wanted that, hey, can we do an episode to support their practice as well and how to integrate it? So I always ask, the first question I ask is, how did you come into contact with Reiki, and a little bit about your journey?
Well, I really do like how we met too, by the way. It's really fun. The first interaction that I had with Reiki was a very long time ago. What I mentioned in the bio was a little bit more recent history, but the first interaction I had with Reiki was through a friend of mine who I was going to theater school with, and she had what turns out to be a Reiki master friend of hers from Seattle, Washington area. And the first Reiki treatment I ever did or ever received was, a quote unquote distant Reiki session where I got on the phone with this woman and told her what was going on. Then I lay down and I had quite an impactful experience. And I was stunned and surprised. And I'm not sure I even knew she was a Reiki practitioner. I just knew that I had this tremendous experience. And then going back over it, I was like, oh, reading her bio years later, probably she was a Reiki practitioner, master. Wow. But the most important one was when I had the experience with my dear student in the hospital who did have that inoperable brain tumor. And I came into the hospital room, to pay her a visit. And actually, her husband had asked me if I would come and if I would bring her a bolster, a yoga bolster, which is what I ended up using in Reiki and restorative classes. I saw the Reiki master with her hands on her head. And I was like, what is this? What's going on here? And she said, oh, I'm giving her a Reiki treatment. And I just thought, the light went off. I was like, oh, I want to do that. And I even said to the woman, I said, well, can I do that too? She said, of course you can. I can train you to do that. And so that started a nice relationship with the person that initially gave me level 1 and level 2, which has brought me to where I am now.
It's a very poignant story because a lot of us, we go into Reiki because of stress. This is really like a moving beginning to your journey. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, it was really moving. I mean, unfortunately, of course, she left her body because it was inoperable. There was nothing that could be done. And to see it in that clinical environment, I don't even know. It was just like I was pulled, because there's so many things in the way in a hospital. But it was a direct connection. And I actually, at that moment, I took it as literally a sign, and I followed through. So here I am now.
Cool. And you also have done a lot of silent meditations in the Buddhist tradition, right? So you start probably studying Reiki, probably Western, if I'm not wrong, like because most of us start that way, and then you have your Buddhist tradition. How did that start impacting your Reiki journey?
Well, the originally the Reiki master that I studied with, she is a traditional Japanese master. So I don't know about the Western. I'm not sure about that.
You start from the beginning Japanese. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. I don't consider myself a scholar of the Reiki canon of information that's out there. I consider myself just a deep practitioner. And I think that there's a difference for me because, like, all of the history, I'm good on the history. I'm not great on the history, but I'm very deep in the practice. But with regard to the meditation retreats, I mean, for many years, I've been meditating because I'm also a yoga practitioner and teacher. And getting silent for, a week, 10 days at a time over, 2 times a year for many years in a row, it does something to a person. Getting silent, getting quiet, going inwardly, that's the point of all of these potentially life-changing practices. And what I find with my Reiki practice is I do consider myself, I'm a meditator. I meditate. I meditate on the hara while I have my hands on or over somebody. So to me, they're very the same thing. And they're both basically Buddhist practices. And that's how I treat them. The ability to get quiet for a prolonged period of time, the ability to hold oneself basically still with hands on or slightly over a person's body. I mean, you have to get quiet, you have to be still for both of those things to happen. So any way that we can train our minds and our bodies and our nervous systems, obviously, which is really in control, then, do as much of those things as you possibly can. Sitting still, being still, and dredging up as much consciousness, awareness as possible, and physical sort of palpability, like you can feel yourself being there. The Anapanasati practice, the mindfulness of breathing practice, and the Joshinkokyuho practice, I see no difference. They're the same to me. So it was a wonderful cross-pollination of practices. And furthermore, to weave it into yoga, pranayama / breath work. To me, there can be different topical, technical things that are slightly different. Sure, what you're doing with your attention, how long you hold the breath, how much you manipulate the breath, but at the root of it, it's a consciousness paying attention to breathing. So at the base of it, it is the same. So they just, all those three, I got to bring the yoga in too, all those three just overlapped and they make so much sense. It's like a braid, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then it makes this very strong rope of a practice that does keep me tethered. I need all three of these practices: meditation, which of course is part of yoga, just the whole scope of it, and Reiki. I sometimes joke when we are doing these Reiki restorative events that we do, that we're just elite meditators, us Reiki practitioners. We are elite meditators because that's what I train my students and people that I train. Mostly I encourage them in the direction of like, meditate. You don't know what to do with your mind? Meditate on your hara. Call it a day. And focus. So I like that. Elite meditators. That's what I feel like we are.
And I love it. And I think it's a New York saying, like, I need meditation, I need martial arts, and I need, for me, Reiki meditation, pretty much the same, but I need more than one thing to stay grounded. And I love one thing that you said, a deep practitioner. It's a beautiful definition, which is really understanding a practice through literally practice. And we can know the history, but yeah, sometimes we get too much in our brains. So I really appreciate that concept of deep practitioner. It's very beautiful.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for reflecting that back to me. It is, what I like about our being deep practitioners is actually the practice stays the same, right? But we just keep going further and further and further, but it's the same technique. It's the same tool. It's like a drill bit, the old fashioned kind of drills. You would just drill, and it keeps going and going and going and going. There is seemingly no end to how much we can pay attention, how much we can be present, and how deep we can go with this. And which is just to me, it's just an outer expanding level of the Reiki energy, the pranic energy, all of these different words for a very similar thing. Reiki, prana, the qi in the Chinese, lung in the Tibetan. It's, if you want to really split hairs, maybe there's a difference, but for all intents and purposes, I'm more of a bridger of gaps and a bringer together than this is different than that. It's like, where do we find the holistic connection is what I'm after.
And I think you also mentioned stillness of mind, right? Like that is a connector. And a lot of times in Reiki, you want to manipulate and do things. And actually, it's really about stilling that mind so the energy can flow and things happen. And which for us, especially as New Yorkers, is hard to let go of control. So it's a very healthy practice, but also that's why it's simple but so difficult, right? Letting go and stilling the mind is
yeah. No, it's not. It's certainly not easy. And maybe as New Yorkers, that's what makes it interesting. It's like, oh, this is a challenge. I will take on this challenge. And the challenge is to, what you're just saying about this, letting it flow, letting this Reiki flow. So and I believe I heard Franz say this, and this is why his teachings, one of the reasons his teachings have been so impactful, and was that we are not I'm not a healer. When he said that, and I heard it, I was like, that resonated so much. I am not a healer. The body heals itself. It's like we get to be a channel, a conduit, where I am practicing literally undoing the grip of my jaw, my tongue, my throat, my eyes, my shoulders, my hands, so that we can flow and undulate with it. So it comes through to this body where my hands are on or slightly above, and the body, this amazing evolution of cells, etc., knows what to do with the energy. I don't. I'm not like I don't get signals. I don't get knowing. I'm not a medical intuitive. I don't know, basically. But I know that the body knows. And I'm just trying to get out of the way. That's why meditating on the hara for me is just the clearest, most direct way. Then I don't have to worry about myself, and I don't have to try to diagnose anybody, because I don't know what's wrong with them anyhow. I have no idea, frankly. I don't. But I know some people have that gift. It's just not the one that I have. So I just try to calm myself, clear myself, and be a conduit.
And I think that's important. Like at the end, that's a gift that could have some Reiki practitioner, but it's not part of Reiki practice. We don't need to know. Right. And I think I really appreciate you saying that, because a lot of people, they're really like, oh, I don't feel anything. A lot of Reiki practitioners don't feel anything. You're not supposed to feel or have those intuition. That's perhaps another gift, but stillness is the core. So I really appreciate you opening and saying that. I don't feel very much lately either. At the beginning I felt, and now I'm like, because if I feel, I'm not still, like my mind is distracted. So I think it's a very strange thing, but yeah.
It's interesting what you say, because if you feel, then you're not still. And then if we feel, if I get some like hunch or something, then I might glom onto it. And then it makes me clamp down, which is not the point. I'm trying to let go. I'm trying to receive and let go at the same time. So the hand has to be like this. I'm receiving and I'm letting go at the same time. Our hands aren't like this. Our hands are like this.
Open and relaxed. I love that.
Totally.
And going on the importance of the body, because I think that's, again, when you're a yoga practitioner, it is, but you did some classes, some work with Wendell, sorry, I'm pronouncing that name very badly. Wendell Beavers? Wendell Beavers. Perfect. And you said that he brought up what felt like an innate gratefulness and confidence in being my own body and exploring it. I saw that sentence, and it was what came through the writing. I was like, wow, there is so much depth and beauty in it, especially in a society where most of us are trying to change our bodies, or we're not comfortable with bodies, or in spiritual practices, the body gets in the way of spirituality. So I wanted, really struck me like so beautiful. So if you can elaborate on it a little bit.
I'm so glad that you brought up that line, because when I moved to New York, I went to theater school at NYU, and Wendell Beavers was the teacher of my movement teacher. First class, first day, I had Wendell Beavers, and I was young, I was in my 20s, etc. And as it turns out, he actually is also a Buddhist who teaches at Naropa, and maybe he is retired by now, but he is Buddhist. And he taught us this process of getting in touch with the body called developmental movement, which is how the body learns to, from the moment that it comes out of the womb, to rolling over, to lifting the head, to crawling, to the whole development of. So we spent many days, many months on the floor, basically rolling around. Wow. And through that, this sounds cheesy, but I'm gonna say it anyhow, it's almost like a rebirthing process, like going back over the being in a body and reclaiming it. So that is what he delivered to me just through his regular class of training an actor to have a good sense of their body. And what that process did, it dismantled a lot of ideas that I had about how a body should be. It dismantled a lot of patterns that I had in movement. And so it was really just like a little bit like being born again. That sounds so cheesy, I know.
But listen, life has cheesiness in it. It's true.
But I think that, and I think innately, if there is anything that everybody is entitled to, we're entitled to the sense of being very deeply connected to the body. So not just living from here up, but just feeling through the whole thing, immersed consciousness throughout the whole thing. Like you said, sometimes we are just very intellectual about the practice and waiting and sort of calculative, like, oh, well, it should be like this, it should be like this, it should be like this. When actually, if we could just let the mind sink and come through all of the fingers, all of the toes, all of the pores, every strand of hair, and then we could have an experience that we couldn't actually conjure intellectually. It's completely different. It's very much just the animal body, you know, this beautiful organism that has evolved for tens of thousands of years without our conscious manipulation, you know, and it's still evolving.
It is. And it's funny, and this is unrelated, but so I was reading how actually when you age, we hate that little belly that we have, but the little belly is actually helping keeping the estrogen stable. So there is a beautiful reason for that little belly. And I was like, wow, if we knew more about all the wisdom of the body, you will be grateful for that little belly, because it's actually keeping your mood stable and your body and your bones, everything well. So even, and sometimes I think we don't explore, as you said, and I love that by exploring the belly, understand it better, and developing gratitude for me, even that little belly that we may dislike, but it's actually protecting us and keeping us grounded and well. You know, it's interesting. I was an advocate of the body, so discovering the body for me through martial arts was like also life-changing. And when I read your sentence, and I think, again, I come from a very Catholic Western religion, and for us the body is in the way. Like, spiritual life starts when you die and you're preparing for that. And sometimes I see the influence on Western Reiki that we want to avoid third eye, we live with the angels, but magic happens in the body, right? They happen here.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, it kind of the only way for us to notice the magic that does happen is through the body.
Yeah.
If you don't have a body, you can't notice it, you know. And this moment, I'm very on this, like, right now, this is it. This is the gift. Yeah. This is the miracle. This is it. It's not when I open my chakras or I open my nadis or I have a super an experience that seems outerworldly, where I leave I don't want to leave my body right now. I want to be in it, because this is where the amazing stuff is happening. Just simple physical functions, right? Simple physical functions. I got a boo-boo on my knee. It's healing. That's a miracle. You know, I blink my eyes every time that I need to re-lubricate the eye. Miracle. I had breakfast. I'm digesting. I don't have to think about it. Miracle. You know, it's hair growing. Miracle. You know, and it's not. I don't want to jump out of it. I'm in it for a reason. Let me take a good look around inside it and what I've set up myself around me to observe it, what is happening. This is the lesson. This is the place of growth right here. Yeah, I don't have a lot of time I mean, I've done lots of meditations on all sorts of things, and they're cool and it's great. But right now, where I am in my life, it's like, no, the miracle is right now. It's nowhere else. And, you know, walk outside, the sun is in the sky, miracle. There's a sky, miracle. I can breathe, miracle. It's just all around us. There's not anything else that I'm going to do that's going to make this moment even more exciting. No matter, it's just not. It's amazing as it is.
I'm hearing what you're saying so much. It's very precepts just for today and be grateful. But also it's funny, because I work and I went to an event and with everybody full of makeup, and it was daytime in a warehouse. It was very strange. And I don't like crowds, never did it. So I'm in the event, everybody's like, woo, singing, they're singing Despacito, whatever. I go out and I'm in like East Chinatown with everybody wrinkly and picking up cans. And I found like, this is so much more beautiful. Natural walking on a street felt so much more beautiful than all the makeup and the lights and the songs. And I think as we practice, like, we can see the magic or the miracle, as you said, in very little things, even in sitting still and feeling our body. So I'm hearting, and you just communicated so well. Thank you.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for asking poignant questions and bringing up things that matter.
Yeah, But so I wanted to work a little bit and go a little for the practical side, because you're also a very practical person, right? You put your center, like you're also probably very grounded, very much in the hara, moving from the hara. But for those people who have a yoga practice and perhaps they're doing Reiki 1, Reiki 2, well, how will you, perhaps a few tips for them to start integrating the two practices, and perhaps how can they benefit one practice from the other?
Okay, so first thing I would say, first thing right off the bat, if you are a Reiki practitioner, level 1, level 2, whatever, in Shavasana, put your hands on yourself. Bottom line, like just do that. Just do that. Put your hands on yourself. Why? Because if you hit the mat every single day, great, got the discipline. And you're looking like, oh, how do I get the discipline? I'm supposed to do all of these spots on my body every day. Forget it. Put your hands on your hara. Do your Reiki practice in Shavasana. It is, in my opinion, it is totally legal. It is totally legal. The second thing I would say is, when you're going to sleep, I mean, I can't tell you how often I go to sleep like this, or again, the hara, or on whatever little part of my body that is ailing me. So that's, I mean, that's just baseline. If you're a yoga practitioner and you find yourself in a class all the time, great. We always do Shavasana. If you find yourself in classes that don't offer Shavasana, find different classes to take. Because Shavasana is important.
I had no idea there were classes without Savasana. Is that?
Well, you never know. You never know. You never know. You never know. I could think of a couple, places that, they shall remain nameless. But if you are a Reiki practitioner, that's a great place to start. And to just to go like this, to weave it together. The other thing is that well, I do Reiki with restorative yoga. So do you know what restorative yoga is?
Yes,
I'll tell.
Tell me, I know, but yeah, it's better to explain because some people may not know.
Yes. So restorative yoga, one of the ways to practice it is how I learned with the Iyengar Institute, wherein you use bolsters and blocks and blankets to prop up the body. So you create almost, a lot of the postures are supine. Many of them are also standing and stuff. I focus on the lying down ones when I do Reiki. But you're creating like a cradle for the body. And it's not about stretching. It's not about trying to get a workout. It's not about doing, it's about just letting these props hold your joints up, and a comfort that comes with that. Similar to Shavasana, where Shavasana is not falling asleep. That's sleeping is one thing. Shavasana is another thing. If you're tired, fall asleep, that's fine, but it's not Shavasana. But it's keeping the mind present. And then sometimes restorative postures are used to prepare the body for pranayama practice, the yoga breathing, breathwork practices. But I use them for let's do Reiki. So you can set yourself up in a restorative posture, Supta Baddha Konasana, Supta Virasana, and again, just put your hands on your body. If you are a practitioner, also, maybe before you start practicing, you do, Gokai, always do your precepts, repeat your mantras, imagine the symbols, and then launch into a sun salutation. You can very stealthily frame a practice at the beginning and at the end. 5 minutes, that gives you 10 minutes of Reiki practice. And the other thing is, what I would do really, if you have a buddy, if you have a friend who you two did Reiki 1 together or Reiki 2 together, You have a friend and you love yoga and you know a couple of these restorative poses, set each other up. Set one up in Supta Baddha Konasana or whatever your favorite posture is, and put your hands on them. 5 minutes. Do a trade. 5 minutes on the head or wherever, Biosin, wherever you want to go, wherever it feels like the right place to go is. And that could help you. You need a partner for that though. And I think when it comes to the Reiki, if you want to take it to that next level, you partner with somebody and the restorative. And you can always just put your hands on yourself in any posture, in particular the restoratives, because you're going to be there for a little while, 5, 10, sometimes 15 minutes. Tell me, you have a question?
No, I have a question. No, I was thinking how beautiful it is, because we always try as teachers to have like your groups of Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 become a little bit of a family. But I think it's a good reminder, because most of them, perhaps they do it the first few weeks and then they forget about their Reiki pals and I cannot practice on anyone. So I think it's a fantastic reminder. But I also had another question, because first of all, I'm in love with what you said, because I think people struggle for a daily practice, and this is not only integrating it, but it's like also helping you to get that Reiki practice. And again, it's not so much about time, but do a few minutes every day is more important, and then keep it growing. But also, for example, if I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm going to offer restorative with Reiki, like imagine like you do, I was thinking, what are some of the don'ts? Like going the other way around. Like if I'm a teacher and I have my people propped up in restorative, what perhaps 2 things I should do and 2 things I should not do?
Well, they should know what they're signing up for, first of all.
Yeah.
So, so make sure they know if you're going to be giving them Reiki. I mean, that's what I learned, it's that there should be a little bit of consent with it, like you have to say like, okay, because some people, maybe they don't know and they think it's some witchy thing, or they don't understand that. And don't spring the Reiki on anybody. And I think that's fair. So don't not tell them. Do tell them, and don't not tell them. Those are like, I can't think, Reiki is one of those things where it's like, and restorative. So don't stay in it in a posture, even if it's supposed to be comfortable, but you're uncomfortable. Okay. If you're uncomfortable, something's wrong.
Yeah.
That's the body is telling you. You're looking for signs and signals. The body in discomfort is telling you, I need to shift or adjust. So you just have to hope that that the teacher is skilled enough to be able to help you adjust, or you're skilled enough with yourself that you can adjust the posture, whatever it is. I think that, I can't think of any other real don'ts, I mean, fantastic. Don't drink before you practice, there are obvious things,
you're going to laugh, but once I got a client, it wasn't a client, but she came for a session and she wrecked of alcohol, and she was like snoring with alcohol. So it seems like obvious, but it's not
right
obvious.
I've had that before too. Yeah. Don't, no drinking in yoga or no drinking in Reiki, not a good combination. You're right. That's kind of obvious to us maybe, but maybe not to somebody else. Because the person that came and had a drink prior to the experience was just like, whatever, I had a martini, it's like a normal thing for him. Like, I just had a martini. What's the big deal? It's like, oh, okay. Okay. All right, then. Do come with an open mind as best you can, and that's like sort of the ideal, right? My mind is open, but I've got all these sutures that are keeping me intact, so as open-hearted, as open-minded as you can be, and to the possibility of, hey, something might happen here. I might, and also, if you're a practitioner, I think it's really important to say it might not feel like anything. And what I often say is it's like, I say it's like, how water doesn't taste like anything really? It might be like water. It's not like Kool-Aid, which tastes like sugar, or lemonade that tastes like lemon, or tea that has milk and honey in it. And, those things are more flavorful, but it might just be like water. So and finally just come to these experiences as much as you can and get more Reiki and practice more Reiki, because the more, even as subtle as it is, the more we come back to it, the more we get used to it, we acclimate to it, and then we realize it's like, oh, actually it builds up in the body, and my capacity to feel and sense changes subtly over time. The nervous system changes, and we can feel and experience what we couldn't before, even though the same thing is happening, it seems. But we change, our cells, our nervous system, we change. Does that help?
I greatly appreciate what you just shared. And it's funny, you're talking, and what comes to me is we're always looking, because you use the word signs, which in myself, like, I don't use that much, but I hear you talking, is so beautiful, because we're looking for signs in the universe everywhere. And the signs are in your body, right? You say, like, listen to the body, it's a sign, it's telling you. So I think it's a great conversation to say, okay, stop looking. We're almost looking into the trees. Oh, a bird passed, a car that was yellow came. And actually, we just need to feel in the body, and that's the sign of the universe, right? I found that very beautiful.
I mean, I think it is. In yoga, as laid out by Sri, the beautiful Patanjali, who is the name of the sage, he laid out this Ashtanga yoga path, and which is Ashta, 8 anga limbs. So this 8-limbed yoga path. And right in the middle of this path is something that's called pratyahara. Pratyahara loosely translates as a withdrawal of the senses. So what does that mean? Instead of looking out, I'm looking in. Instead of listening out, I'm listening in. Instead of tasting out, I'm tasting in. Instead of smelling out, I'm smelling in, etc. Right? So we're turning our senses around. We're very skilled at this, going outward. Even from my back, I can tell how far this is away from me. Even that. But we're learning through the process of this Ashtanga yoga, we're learning through the process of experience of Reiki to go inside. And it's subtle. It can be very subtle at first. But over time, it starts to be like, oh, wait a second. I heard something. Oh, but it's not from a speaker out here. It's not from my friend talking to me. It's inside. It's a literal message inside. And I feel pain on the inside. That's a message inside. I can feel the heart flutter in the chest. You get the idea.
Yeah. No, and I love what you're bringing from yoga, because we're talking about some similarities in Reiki practice or not.
Yeah.
But especially the simple initiation in Reiki, which is like the one without symbols, which is the simplest rituals. For those people who are hearing, there is tons of different initiation rituals, but the simple one that is really inspired by Kaji, this Buddhist ritual, is also about not being distracted by the senses, right? Don't be distracted by what you see, what you hear. And those key points are here. And there is that layer. Obviously, there is a deeper layer, but one of the layers is don't be distracted by what you taste, what you see, what you hear. So when you said that to me, I'm like, there is this deep connection, what you were talking before, like at the basis, they're all the same, even though their expression and the outer forms may be very different.
Right. I agree. And also it's like all of them we have to get used to. If we're constantly going out, we have to get used to whatever, from the Reiki, from the yoga, from the Taekwondo. It's like we have to go to figure out, like, how do I pay attention to what's going on inside? And it can be just at first, it's just like dark black, nothing's going on in there, there's nothing there. I'm just in my head. I'm going, losing my mind. I'm just thinking about all sorts of stuff. But then slowly, through persistence, through everyday practice, you can't not practice. You can't not practice. You have to show up every day, even if it's as simple as just sitting in front of, I have my altar over here. I light a candle and I do the precepts, every day. Sometimes in the mirror, hold myself accountable. Like This is what we're doing. We're building our capacity to handle the download of the Reiki. We're building our capacity to feel, to sense. We're building our capacity to share, ultimately, to help.
That's beautifully said, because I think I always say like practice, 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 but you're putting it in a why, in a very interesting and very clear way. So I appreciate that very much. So you have done a lot. You have said a lot. You have like yoga centers that you own and direct, and you also are a Reiki teacher. Where are you going? What is your next goal or ambition, or what beyond being present, which I know is probably a big one?
Yeah.
Is there any dream that you have that you would like to share, or any plans?
Nathalie, it's a really a good question. Right in this moment, I mean, I feel like I'm doing like everything that I want to do with my practices. Maybe a pipe dream would be like to write a little bit, to have some writing, to get clear in the skill of communicating through the written word what I am doing with these practices, and with story. But I mean, I feel like the journey is probably there. I've done teacher trainings, and like I'm attuning somebody on Friday, it's like all of these things are constantly happening. Better relationships, maybe an expanding network of people. And to honor what I hear. If I could get better at honoring the messages that I'm currently getting, and not brush those for my own self, for my own growth and evolution, and not brush those under the carpet, that would be a goal for me. I can help you, and I can help, but sometimes I push myself to the side, quite frankly. And that might be the area to steer my little vessel. Like, I've done a lot, and to honor the direction that I'm sort of being nudged in, that I'm trying to no, like I don't want to go that way, but to go. If that makes any sense. I don't know.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, and I think it's very beautiful, because in others where you are, you're like grateful where you are, but it's like, and I think it's going inwards, right? What we're talking about, really connecting and going inwards and listening. So it's just a deepening of your practice, which, it's a beautiful goal. So thank you for sharing. I end every interview with a question. So when people look at you, and honestly, if you live anywhere in New York, I'm now encouraging like everyone to go and check Jaya Yoga. I'm very bad at pronouncing the J's and the Y's.
You're doing great.
All the information on the notes. But if people look at you, it's like, oh, Carla, she has studied Buddhist meditation. She knows all the asanas, what asanas that I can never pronounce. She's also a Reiki teacher. I'll never be like Carla, right? They're seeing you now. So I like for everyone I interview to share like one little oops, perhaps at the beginning of their Reiki practice, or it can be the yoga practice, that may have been an oops, but it was such a kind of like lesson that it was totally worth the oops quality of it.
Let me think. I think an oops for me is actually having a little too much patience, which sounds
no, we get it. I think most women will get it. Yes.
Yeah, it's like with maybe a teacher that I had before, I was a little maybe too patient and could have springboarded to a different teacher sooner. And it would have been less sort of chaotic and confusing for me. And to listen again, like I was just saying, to listen to the inner guidance. Because when I don't listen to my inner guidance, then I sit and I stew in a situation for too long in the name of calling it being patient, when I'm actually getting stagnant. So, yeah. And so patience and stagnation, like the connection can be very subtle, but it's there. And, really read the signs, read the symbols, read it. I got stuck. But I did dislodge, but.
No, that is, I think also, again, patience is a quality that's been like a little bit like feminine. You have to be patient. We've been raised to be patient.
Yeah.
And I had never heard it together with stagnation. Like maybe that's something probably most people have felt. But when you say like, be patient but not stagnant, I think that is such a gift for everyone to hear, because I think, yeah, it's, oh my God, that one hit home. So I'm very moved. Thank you.
Oh, good. It's a thing though. It really is. It's like, I think that we can be too patient, even though it's a virtue, right? It's a virtue until it becomes a darkness and a black hole that sucks you in.
Yeah. And the other one that's come to me is avoidance, right? Sometimes we're patient because we don't want the confrontation.
That's right. That's right.
You can see it home, because I'm like, oh, like pictures in my head.
Amen. It's so true. It's true.
No, you're calling out like it is. And this is great because, I think a lot of us in the Reiki saying, we start taking the precepts of like, don't be angry, don't be worried. And we may go into that place that looks like patient, but it's not truly embodying. It's more like, oh, I'm peace and love. But sometimes we need to have like, there is this deity Fudomyo that has a sword. And sometimes we need to cut through BS, right? We need to move on. So I love what you shared, that oops, because it is also is a very personal oops. So I really enjoyed it.
You got it.
Thank you. And I did a drawing for you, and I didn't get to cut the top of the page.
Oh my God. Wait, you did the drawing for me? Oh my God.
Every guest gets a drawing.
Oh my, wow. So thank you.
You're welcome. This is probably the most deity Buddhist one I've done in a long time. More, so the fire is, you're talking about like, purifying. So the fire is purifying, looking to the heaven, but she's very much also in the body, looking down. And yeah, that is basically unity with the universe. The same with the sun and the moon, which is more of like the master symbol. And then the silver and the gold is also about non-duality in Japanese traditions. Oh
my goodness, I cannot believe it. Are you going to send that? Do I actually get?
Of course you do.
That is amazing.
And yeah, every guest gets a drawing. Everybody gets, and yeah, I mail it to you.
Oh my gosh.
It's gonna go very short distance, so it's a lot easier.
Oh my God, I'm beside myself. Thank you.
I didn't know you didn't know. That's so good. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Oh,
yeah,
I appreciate that.
It's a thank you. Everybody give their time, share their wisdom, and I really appreciate it. And then I basically sit and I do a drawing for the person. And I'm gonna show it like I don't have where's my book? You're gonna see like I have to send. I interviewed someone in Japan the other day, and they're pretty different. So that's for him. So you can see every person gets a very different drawing.
Yes.
He's Brazilian, so I think I was with the Cristo Redentor. He's Brazilian.
Japan. Oh, I love that. That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Wow, Nathalie, you're so talented. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
I've really enjoyed this. I really appreciate, and I feel humbled and beside myself with your having invited me just after our short interaction with Franz. It was a good connection, I feel, between us.
Yes, I'm reading a book, and there is this concept Japanese called En, and En is a connection, but you have to have the intention to tap into it. And I think we had this En, this opportunity to connect, and we took advantage. So I'm very grateful for that.
Great. Me too. Me too.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.